Conversations with Nicole. Conversations with Nicole. Let's talk about it. Tell me all about it. I'm here. I wanna know what's on your mind. Ooh, the world needs to hear from you, and I'm so glad to have a conversation to reach the nation. And it's all about you. We'll help each other to discover innovative ways to positively change the world. Let's talk about. Let's talk about. Yeah. Let's talk about conversations with Nicole.
Welcome to Conversations with Nicole. I am Nicole Everett, your host, and my very special guest is known as the modern-day Fannie Lou Hamer, Miss Valencia V. Gunder. Welcome, V.
Thank you for having me, Nicole.
I'm so glad to be here with you. I've been trying to get you on here for a while.
I know, but we made it happen.
We did. So community advocate, activist, now advocate in residence. We're here at Florida Memorial University, where you are the first advocate in residence for the Social Justice Institute.
Yeah.
How dope is that?
My wildest dreams. I always thought HBCU should be the groundbreaking space for us to be practicing innovation, changing policies, thinking of new ideas on how to advance our communities through racial justice. And the fact that, like, Dr. Hobbs is amazing, and she created, and she's leading the Social Justice Institute, and she invited me in to assist as a practitioner.
Awesome.
So I'm excited about it.
That's good. Now, before we dive more into that, tell the folks, who are you? Who is Valencia V. Gunder?
Okay. That's a loaded question. So I'm Valencia V. Gunder. I like she, her pronouns. I try to always bring that into the space.
Okay.
And I founded a organization, I co-direct an organization called the Smile Trust, where we do a lot of food justice and food insecurity work with unsheltered and under-resourced populations throughout the state of Florida and in Georgia. We also do disaster relief work, especially around food and direct response, like within hours of a storm. Any type of storm, not just hurricanes, any type of storm. And I also am now the national organizing lead for the Movement for Black Lives, for the Red, Black, and Green New Deal, which is something new. I think this is my first public interview saying this.
Okay. We got the exclusive. Thank you.
Which we are building a radical Black climate agenda across 50 states that will make sure that Black people are at the forefront and centered around this new world that we created, that we are being harmfully impacted by, probably at no fault of our own, because big organizations, big institutions are harming us through many ways. And I am also now proudly the advocate in residence here at Florida Memorial University for the Social Justice Institute, and that looks like me organizing students, doing master classes, lectures, introducing them to different types of movement. And my goal is to have every student, when they graduate from this university, to actually have a political home. If it's the NAACP, Movement for Black Lives, the Southerners on New Ground, there's so many organizations, Black Men Build, so many people that they can align with, depending on their own principles and values, to step in to be a part of the movement, no matter what their degree is, what track of employment they decide to take on. It's a space for social change and all of it.
I love it. How awesome is that? So tell me about your experience here at Florida Memorial, being the advocate in residence with the master classes and your engagement with the students.
Yeah, so it's brand new for me. I am a radical organizer, and I just move through the world, kicking down doors and helping building Black folks up. But I'm super excited. So my experience, I've had a lot of experience with Florida Memorial before the Social Justice Institute, working with the university to assist the Bahamian students after Hurricane Dorian, which was a huge, huge thing the university had to really take on because we have such a large Bahamian population here on campus. And
Yeah, I thought I read that it was like some 3 tons of food or something. Or how did I read that right?
yes, yes. So the Smile Trust did send 3 tons of food over to the
That is
Bahamian Islands.
incredible.
Thank you so much. That's heart work.
Yes,
if
that
people never
is.
heard of it, over 750 volunteers came to volunteer in the sun.
Wow.
For 14 days, nonstop. I mean, we were going around the clock, and you didn't hear not one complaint. And we got the stuff over to the Bahamas, and we actually connected with organizations on the ground there, churches, social justice organizations, and to see the stuff actually make it to the people was a joy. And then the aftermath was our Bahamian family members here in South Florida, because people don't know the long history of the Bahamas to Miami and how it would be no Miami if it wasn't for the Bahamas. And that means in a very literal sense, very, very literal. And here at the university, they were feeling the impacts. They were feeling the impacts because the students, even some of the faculty and staff, are of Bahamian descent. So to see their home suffering,
Right.
their family
Their
members
family
suffering,
members.
they wanted to take action. So the university bravely made sure the students understood that they would have housing through the holiday season because a lot of folks were not able to go home. And the Smile Trust provided meals for the holidays for the students. And that was really fun. I like feeding people, so that was a no-brainer. And we did it actually on the holiday, on Christmas Day, on New Year's Day, because we wanted them to actually have a holiday experience in whatever capacity we could here on campus.
Right.
And I also was the keynote speaker for their convocation for last fall. Well, not fall 2020, fall 2019. So I had engaged the university a few times, and back in 2015, even assisting the students when I was leading the Flint water drive from Miami to Flint, Michigan. The student body came together and did a huge water drive on campus, and they, trusted me and the Smile Trust to get their water up to Michigan, and it made it. It made it. So when they reached out about the Social Justice Institute, when Dr. Hobbs reached out to me, I didn't even blink. I was honored. I was like, this is something I always wanted to do. This is something I always thought HBCUs should be doing. I attended a HBCU myself.
Yes, FAMU.
FAMU. And I'm just like, this so much. And it's because of my education at a HBCU that I am even able to do my job as an advocate. So I just want that to be an option for all students, especially Black students at HBCUs, because if we like it or not, it's all of our job to fight for liberation of Black folks, to end oppression in America, globally, in whatever way it is, if it's police brutality, if it's gun violence, if it's poverty, housing, whatever we want to do, it's so many layers of it that it's work for all of us to do, even when we talk about education. So if you want to be a teacher, great. We need you to be that. And let me show you how to identify racial justice issues and teach you how to come up with solutions that's inclusive and equitable for everybody.
I love that you are teaching across sectors. Because we're all human beings.
That's right.
And we all need to have a role. Everyone has some value that they can add to the movement, right?
Yes.
I think also it's so appropriate that you are doing this residency at an HBCU with the students, because we see movements globally that are started by students.
That's right.
Right? So who better than someone that is boots on the ground, that has led several different campaigns and, advocated for many different things than you to show them the way,
Yes.
show them a more excellent way to protest, to galvanize, to organize, to move a movement forward.
That's right.
Yeah, I think that's awesome.
Thank you.
So, gosh, Smiles Trust. Tell me more about that.
So the Smile Trust was started in 2014. People are learning more about this with my personal experience, but I was once homeless when I was in Tallahassee for a few months Pride had a lot to do with that because I had family in Tallahassee. It's a lot of stuff was going on in my life. But I ended up homeless. And while being homeless, I understood, like, well, I had to learn the gaps when it came to helping people and how people were being served. And I did not enjoy my experience as a homeless person like most folks don't. But truly because I was one of the type of people who were like, let me figure out resources, let me figure out how to get myself some assistance. And it was not accessible. It was not accessible. And I didn't have the resources to help back then. That was in 2010. But I did, when I told myself, I was like, when I get myself together, I'm going to assist. And in 2014, I did just that. I went out there with some sandwiches and some water, not expecting to have much impact, but a lot of people showed up to help. And we were able to assist a good amount of folks. And the community was just like, when we coming back? And I'm like, I was coming one time. But here we are 7 years later.
Wow.
And we have been feeding and serving for a long time. The Smile Trust is an all-volunteer organization, so no staff, which a lot of people are surprised about. No staff yet. We tend to assist unsheltered folks in under-resourced populations directly at their needs. So we don't make assumptions that people need a certain thing. We literally ask questions and we try to model our resources to those things. And we have Smile Days.
I have seen some of your Smile Days, and it's been absolutely beautiful. I think what has touched me more than anything is to see the transformation when someone is getting their hair cut, a man, you know, or they're getting their hair done, you know, the ladies getting their hair done, and just their smiles. They just, they radiate. So I thank you for that work.
Thank you.
That's very special.
Thank you. And that's all we charge for it is a smile. Yep. And we do showers and haircuts and clothes and food. And you are right. When they get their haircut and they come out of that shower, new money. Like they just feel good. And then you see the hope restoring folks. And that's the whole job of the Smile Days, is to do that first point of contact for us to build trust with folks, so then we can try to navigate them through more resources so that they can become more stabilized.
Now, how frequently are you doing Smile Days?
So we do it every third Sunday here in Miami and every fourth Sunday in Atlanta.
Wow.
But during COVID, we started to do weekly food drives.
Okay.
And we only do our full service once a month. But every Friday we do food drops. We worked in partnership with Dr. Armin Henderson here in Miami, who was doing a lot of the COVID testing on the ground for unsheltered folks. And we also, we turned into a 24-hour emergency operations center during disaster.
Okay, very good. All right, well, we're going to take a break right here.
Yes.
But when we come back, I want to hear more about what the modern-day Fannie Lou Hamer has got on the horizon.
Yes.
All right, stay tuned for more conversations.
Conversations with Nicole.
You know, if you know me, you know I'm a TV freak. I watch television all the time. And when I think about the number 10, the first thing that comes to mind is the Family Feud, because there's always questions about rating your answer on a scale of 1 to 10. But I gotta tell you, 10 is always on top of 1 to 10. It's a major milestone. Now, for wedding anniversaries, they acknowledge it with wood. But I think in terms of Conversations with Nicole, we have reached a golden moment. It's the 10th season of Conversations with Nicole. I like that.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about Conversations with Nicole. Let's talk about Let's talk about Conversations with Nicole.
Welcome back to Conversations with Nicole. If you're just joining us, my guest is Valencia V. Gunder, also known as the modern-day Fannie Lou Hamer. And we have been talking about her important work at Florida Memorial University with the Social Justice Institute. She's an advocate in residence, but also just an all-around community advocate and activist. So, V, you worked tirelessly on the Amendment 4 legislation, if you will. It's been a few years back now. So tell me kind of where that is right now and what other things have kind of come from that.
Sure. So Amendment 4 actually was passed in the state of Florida in 2018. Over 70% of our population voting bloc actually voted in support of it. It was a nonpartisan, across the aisle push to restore 1.4 million people's voting rights. I was one of those people. And right after, the legislature tried to roll back Amendment 4. They started to question things around like fines and fees, to restitution, to things of that nature. And their argument was you had to have completed your sentence. Your sentence to restore your rights. But fines and fees...
Which included fines and fees being paid.
No, that's the difference. So your sentence, when I'm sentenced in the court, they tell you how much time you have to serve, if you have to do community service or probation. And then they tell you what your restitution is. Fines and fees is something that accumulates while you're on probation. That has nothing to do with your sentencing. So you can complete your full sentence and still owe fines and fees, right? And fines and fees look like you paying $5 for the PAL program or whatever little nonprofits they want to pump money into. That has nothing to do with community security or public safety. So it's a capitalistic form of community control that has nothing to do with keeping us safe. I just want to name that. So the debate was around, like, is this a part of the sentencing or something that's completely different? And some folks, like the state's attorney here in the state of, in Miami, Florida, she actually made sure that people knew that these were two separate documents, and that fast-tracked folks into being able to register to vote. Folks like the Florida Rights Restoration Coalition started to do fundraising to help pay off folks' restitution and fines and fees so that they could get people to vote. But if we take a trip down memory lane history real quick, that is a poll tax. That is a poll tax. That's just like asking residents to pay all of their bills before voting day. What does that have to do with my right to participate in the decision-making institution of our country? In our Constitution, it says taxation without representation. Right? Nobody's told us that we have to stop paying taxes, right? Felon, fines and fees or not, we pay our taxes, so we should be able to participate in the voting, in the decision-making process of our country. And the fact that felons are being left out of that still in certain parts of the country. Here in the state of Florida, it's already against what our Constitution says. And then on top of that, you try to bring back these Jim Crow laws, because that's exactly what it is, to prevent people from being able to participate. But we do have folks, grassroots organizations, who are fighting hard to do these things. But then it comes up, like the type of language that's being used in other pieces of legislation to prevent formerly incarcerated or returning citizens, stopping them to vote, right? So, for example, around this new minimum wage that Florida has fought really hard for the $15 an hour, which should now be $17 an hour. I just want to say that. But our good folks, our union workers and organizations and coalitions, they've been fighting for years for that. We finally got it passed in 2020. So thank you for all the courageous folks who did that work on the front line. But then some of the pieces of the legislation and some of the things that the legislature is trying to do in legislative session is trying to exclude felons from receiving the $15 an hour. That's not okay.
No, it's not. How is that possible?
It's possible when you have unfair people running your state. Yeah. And And then one more thing that's arising is this new anti-protest legislation that's been introduced here in the state of Florida. That's actually been introduced in 16 states across America, most of them being in the South. And Florida is moving fast track. One of the first bills to be filed this year. Forget the fact that we're in a pandemic. Forget the fact that people are home and can't feed themselves. Forget the fact that we are losing thousands of people to COVID every single day. Our governor decided to prioritize this one thing. So it's HB1, literally the first piece of legislation
bill.
that was filed this year. And it's damaging. It's a direct target at our ability to use our First Amendment rights. It takes away our ability to stand in the street and to fight and demand you listen to us and fight for justice. Lobbying alone doesn't work. Writing things on social media doesn't work alone. None of it works alone. We need all tactics to achieve our freedom. And it's just so amazing how, like, they quote Dr. King all the time. And Dr. King, based on this law, would have been a felon for doing what it is he does.
Right.
Like, he had to use civil disobedience. He had to take over streets. They shut down bridges. They did banner drops. They went into spaces when they were not allowed into these things. People, they fetishized and romanticized the Black Panther Party. They walked into state buildings. They did what they had to do to change the material conditions for their communities. And now, yes, in history, like, yes, the Black Panther Party, Dr. King, Malcolm X, but you all are supporting legislation that would have criminalized, but then they did criminalize them because they all dead. So there's that.
True. Wow. All right. So let's transition to the Dignity Florida program or movement. Actually, that was probably the last time that I saw you in Tallahassee, where you were coming to fight for the rights of incarcerated women to get just treatment and feminine hygiene products. So talk a little bit about that and where it is now.
Yes. So, so based off my personal experience when I was incarcerated, and then hearing stories from hundreds of other women here in the state of Florida, and then even more women across the United States, I realized that women were being mistreated while incarcerated. And we don't ask for nothing special, we're asking for basic needs. So women could not afford tampons and pads and soap and deodorant, and that's absurd, right? My good friend Jody Polk out of Ocala always says this. She was like, being incarcerated is the punishment. I should not be being punished while I'm incarcerated, right? That wasn't a part of my sentencing. And then the fact that women are walking around with stained underwear, not being able to take care of themselves in the most basic way is against our human rights.
So just to be clear, there is a cost to the incarcerated woman for these supplies.
Yes.
And typically,
before our legislation.
Right. Typically, the price point, too, was pretty astronomical.
Right. Like $14 for a 6-pack of tampons.
That's insane.
Ridiculous. And then it wasn't even no good tampons, but that's another conversation. You know, as women, we know these things, and the type of product matters also.
It does.
So we filed legislation after Louisiana and Georgia filed it. So we were able to work with some of our comrades from those states who helped us draft our legislation. And shout out to Senator Jason Pizzo, and at the time, Representative Sharon Jones. He's now a senator.
Yes.
They were champions. And also Rep. Amy Mercado. They were champions. They stood tall. And to our surprise, a lot of people did not know that women were not being given these things. Like, to hear and see legislators like, wait, you're telling me that women are not, wait, hold on. And it was ridiculous. And we got unanimous support from both sides of the aisle. Like, every legislator supported. Now, not all groups across the state of Florida agreed with us and our movement around these things. However, we did get the support. All 150 plus legislators voted in support of it, and Governor DeSantis actually signed it into law in July of 2019. And now women have free and unlimited access to hygiene products, and that's pads, that's tampons. And a mother tweeted me in 2019, and she was like, my daughter just called, and she's in Coleman up in North Florida, and she said, they just gave us all a box of tampons. And her mom was like, let me tell you why. And just to see the impact, like to know that the women are getting what they need while they're inside, and not just limited to pads and tampons, to soap that's not going to dry their skins out, to deodorant that actually work and won't harm them, to no lie, soap and lotion and things of that nature. And honestly, when you feel better, you actually respond better. And I don't care in what environment, that is the truth.
Absolutely.
That is the truth. And women deserve that. Like, we can't help that we have a monthly subscription to something that we have to respond to.
Right.
It's nothing, I'm quite sure more women would probably, like, if we could opt out of this, we would, but we can't. Not all women. Yeah. So we needed to make sure that they were being supported. And we also pushed the definition of what a woman is. A lot of times we forget that we have trans folks who are still dealing with these issues, and we had to make sure we were inclusive. And then girls, our juvenile detention centers, we made sure that they were included in all of these conversations. And from there, as a matter of fact, when we were going up to Tallahassee for the last vote, we received a damaging phone call that a woman was forced to give birth inside of a jail cell in Broward County without any medical assistance, and she screamed for help. She had a baby herself, and it was Miss Tammy Jackson. Tammy Jackson, is one of the strongest black women I ever seen in my life, because I don't have any children, but I'm more than sure it is a tough task to give birth.
Yes.
And to give birth inside of a jail cell with no assistance. It's only levels and levels of pain that I would never understand until I have a baby. And I'm like, we sitting up here, we're fighting for the rights for women that's incarcerated. And while we're about to celebrate a victory, we get a call about something else. And then while we're in Tallahassee, going to the legislature, we're asking this Dignity Florida, which is a coalition of over 185 black formerly incarcerated women who draft legislation and advocate for the rest of our sisters that are behind these gates and walls.
Right.
To meet even other women in there, like, yeah, like that happened to me 20 years ago when I had my baby.
Wow.
And like this one sister pointed, like, she was born inside of a jail, her daughter, she was born in a jail cell. And I'm like, none of this is okay. And Dignity Florida decided to take on the Tammy Jackson Act to end solitary confinement for pregnant women, to streamline and fast-pace all medical assistance for pregnant women while incarcerated, for them to have access to their babies after they have. Because another thing that happens is DCF take the kids, and nobody know where the kids go.
Wow.
So, and that passed also unanimously in 2020. That was the only progressive state criminal justice reform legislation that passed in the state of Florida. And Senator Pizzo fought tooth and nail till 1 o'clock in the morning, to the last day of legislative session, to get it passed. And it's so many women. Now, when we started to do the work, that was coming to the forefront, like, that happened to me, and this happened, and that happened. And I'm just like, why are women being treated like this in jails and prisons? And most of the time, when you talk about prison reform, it's a very male-led conversation. Now, don't get it twisted. Black men are definitely disproportionately impacted by our criminal justice system. So by no means am I disregarding their harm, you know.
Right.
But there's a lot of focus on that when black women incarceration rates have went up 700% in the last decade. So when they're talking about decarcerating, they're not including, especially black women.
Not including women.
Yes.
Gotcha. Wow, that's a tremendous work. a tremendous
Thank
work.
you.
So, real quick, what do you got on the horizon?
Okay. So we're celebrating our 7-year anniversary for Smile Days.
Yay!
And it's going to be a good, joyous celebration. We will have PPE, so people will be safe. We will be checking temperatures, but we will have a full service day to 500 plus homeless individuals throughout our county here.
Okay.
It's going to be so fun. Music and all the things. And also preparing for the RBG New Deal, the Red, Black, and Green New Deal. This is the biggest piece of work I've taken on, and I'm super excited to be able to do it, to learn from so many Black people across the whole country, to like help me get myself aligned and get this politic together, and we move forward together, because the concerned scientists are saying we have 9 years till we at the point of no return. So the climate crisis is really real. It's not something that we could wait on. It's not something that just looks like a hurricane, right? It's something that's going to impact us largely the next 10 years if we don't start to do the work now. And of course, Black and brown folks will be getting the impact worse than anybody else. So I'm excited to be doing that work. And I am just excited to continue to roll out the stuff here at the Social Justice Institute. We are definitely planning symposiums and things where we want to invite the larger community to. And it'll be done hybrid, right? Because COVID and we want to be safe. But it's such a huge body of work that makes up movement for social impact. And I'm just happy to be doing my piece. Like my friend always say, I'm a leaf on the branch that's on the tree. So I'm holding my little leaf and I'm just trying to teach and help so many other folks to see how they could be a leaf on this tree for us to like really vision what liberation looks like.
Well, your leaf is very important and you do a tremendous job.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for spending time with me today and
Yes.
telling me about all of the great things that you have going on, and keep up the great work.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. And thank you all for joining us on Conversations with Nicole, where we are connecting the community through conversations. We'll see you next time.